Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. It's the middle of the week, August 27th, 2025, Wednesday, 691 days. It seems like these numbers, is anyone paying attention? How can we bring this to an end? Calling for a comprehensive permanent ceasefire, that the atrocities in Gaza would end, that hostages could be returned home. We will continue in our pleas and our desperation, and here's an update of the last 24 hours after 691 days of atrocities. The Israeli military said that they carried out a strike on Gaza's Nasser hospital that killed 20 people in order to destroy an observation camera that was placed in the area by Hamas militants. The military did not provide evidence for its claim about the camera's presence or that 6 of those who were killed, they claim, were Palestinian militants. The IDF did not explain why the first strike was followed by a second strike minutes later. This double strike methodology is illegal by international law. The location targeted by Israel's attack was regularly used by news outlets for live streaming, and I've read in the media that some of the international leaders of media associations have said they question whether or not Israel is intentionally targeting, shutting down those who are telling the stories about what's really happening in Gaza. Egypt has started providing security training to hundreds of Palestinians to be a part of a force that could provide security for Gaza after the war, Arab officials have said. Most of the Palestinians in the force would come from the PA's security services in the occupied West Bank. This is contradicting, those 5 principles that I talked about when Netanyahu said that Israel was going to invade and take over Gaza City. One of the principles was that Hamas nor the PA, neither, could be a part of governance in post-war Gaza. But it sounds like these security forces are being trained from the Palestinian Authority. The Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory, which investigates cases of violence by Israeli settlers and the transfer of arms to Israel for use in Gaza, cannot complete its work due to financial constraints. This is a letter from the inquiry's head, was sent to Reuters, and it's an independent international commission. Israel's investigations into deaths in Gaza need to yield results, a UN Human Rights Office spokesperson said yesterday. I'll give more updates about what's happening in Gaza City. Someone said to me today, I heard that more food is being allowed in. You'll recall that a week ago, famine was declared present in Gaza, and the belief is that if acute intervention is not employed, that by the end of September, a third of the entire population of more than 2 million people will be suffering from starvation as a result of a man-made famine. Here's what you need to know. The Gaza Humanitarian Aid Foundation only distributes food. Once people have severe malnutrition or are in that category 5 of starvation or famine, when that happens, food does not help. You can't just give food and have someone be restored. There has to be chemicals and nutrients and a whole special protocol to address people who are starving. Otherwise, the damage to their body will be catastrophic or won't be able to be reversed, and people will die. People will continue to die. In the occupied West Bank, our staff at Churches for Middle East Peace met with an Israeli human rights organization called Amim. It's an Israeli group. They are monitoring settlements. They gave us the update that there have been 2 appeals taken to the Supreme Court in Israel. They're being prepared right now. One by the Palestinian communities in the area and a second by Israeli NGOs, Amim and Bimkom. They're joined by several affected residents of the Bedouin communities in Atur, which is an appeal that will later hopefully be filed earlier next week. Part of this E1 settlement plan, this is the settlement that will divide the West Bank into 2. It's an expansion or a separate settlement near Ma'al Damim on the way down the Jericho Road. Part of the E1 plan involves building a new highway through Al-Azariya. Al-Azariya, it's the city of Nazareth. Al-Azariya is Bethany, the home of the Christian pilgrimage site and the tomb of Lazarus. That's a major part. It's a Palestinian community that is quite populated on the West Bank, Palestinian side of the separation barrier. The road in question would direct Palestinian traffic away from E1, effectively creating Israel-only roads through Palestinian territory. An engineer in the Al Azira municipality is quite concerned with the effects that this highway will have on the quality of life in the city. Azariah has already been cut in half. It's been cut off from its lifeblood of Jerusalem. And now they're talking about putting a road from Jerusalem through Azariah. Since the plan's approval, initial reports on demolition orders have included 40 structures in Al Azariah. Moving on to Lebanon. Lebanon's government this week is presenting a plan on how to persuade Hezbollah to disarm. So the U.S. ambassador to Turkey and the special envoy Tom Barak, we've been talking about him the last couple of days. Barak made remarks on the plan, and they were overshadowed by his comment asking Lebanese journalists to act civilized and not be animalistic, which drew sharp condemnation from Lebanese commentators. In Syria, Israeli drones killed 6 Syrian soldiers in the Damascus countryside in the last 24 hours. Other updates related to the Middle East, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, has been receiving round-the-clock protection for weeks from the Austrian intelligence agency, receiving information about specific threats to individuals who are linked with Iran. The IAEA is based in Vienna, Austria. In a letter to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, French President Macron yesterday argued that France's call for the creation of an independent Palestinian state does not promote anti-Semitism, but is an essential path to security for Israel. Commenting on accusations that he'd not done enough to protect Jews in France, Macron also called anti-Semitic attacks an abomination, combating what has been his absolute priority since day one. Representatives from Germany, the UK, and France yesterday failed to agree with their Iranian counterparts on measures Iran should take to avoid the reimposition of US sanctions in Tehran over its nuclear program. That's the snapback mechanism we've been talking about, according to diplomatic sources. In a social media post, Iran's deputy foreign minister said Tehran remains committed to diplomacy. Related to the U.S., President Trump will today chair a meeting on Gaza at the White House. I haven't heard a readout of that. Steve Witkoff said this yesterday, adding that the U.S. expects the Israel-Hamas war to be settled by the end of the year. God have mercy, that's still 5 months away. Separately, the U.S. State Department said that Rubio will meet with Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar today. I wanted to close, as I normally do, with some updates about Christians in the Middle East. I was speaking to a CMEP staff member today who's headed to Lebanon in a few weeks. And we were talking about the Christian community there, and he was saying that they're still significantly concerned about the possibility of Israel attacking Iran. Now, we haven't heard anything about that in the news, but the concern is whenever the world puts too much pressure on Israel related to Gaza, there's a distraction. And so that has been a question. In August 2025, Lebanese Christians continue to be deeply affected by the ongoing Hezbollah-Israel crisis, which technically has a ceasefire agreement. Israel is in violation of it because they have not departed south of the Lebanese border. They're in at least several different locations in South Lebanon. Hezbollah may also be in violation. I'm not aware. They're supposed to head north of the Litani River. Christians in Lebanon are fearing conflict, fear, displacement, economic hardship. They're looking forward to a potential visit from Pope Leo. I'll talk about that in a minute. Communities are actively praying for peace and justice, and some are determined to remain in their villages despite the dangers. It's important to understand Lebanon's political system. There are 3 primary positions: the head of parliament, the prime minister, and the president. The president, according to the constitutional requirement, must be a Maronite Christian. So that's one of the top 3 political roles. Christians play a critical role. And the current president of Lebanon is Joseph Aoun. He was elected just this January. And like all Lebanese presidents and army commanders under Lebanon's sectarian power sharing system, Aoun is a Maronite Christian. AP's Associated Press wrote about him after his election, saying that the new president, the former commander, Aoun, has maintained a low profile. Those who know him say he's no nonsense, kind, and adverse to afflicting himself with any party, affiliating himself with any party, or even expressing a political opinion, a rarity for someone in Lebanon's fractured transactional political system. Now, Cardinal Rai is the head of the Maronite Catholic Church, Boutros Rai. He's the head and the patriarch of the Maronite Church in Lebanon. I had the privilege of meeting him last January. He said this month that His Holiness Pope Leo, the Catholic Pope from Rome, may visit Lebanon by December 2025, which would be a significant boon for the Christian community there. So Finally, August is an important month. It marks the anniversary of the 2020 Beirut port explosion, and Christians all over Lebanon earlier this month, on August 4th, gathered in Rome at the Basilica dei Santi, the 12th Apostoli. They prayed for Lebanon ahead of the Jubilee and the remembrance of August 4th. This date marks the anniversary of the port explosion in 2020, one of the most devastating tragedies in Lebanon's recent history. More than 200 people were killed. With hearts full of grief and hope, these Christians lifted prayers for peace, justice, and healing. And that's what we pray, not only for Christians in Lebanon, but for all, and for all in the Middle East. Peace, justice, and healing. May it come quickly in the name of Christ. Amen.